analysis of Sylvia Plath's poem, Cut, by Haley Greenaway. This poem consists of 4 lines per stanza. The tone is created by Plath, incorporating violent imagery in this poem. She references to World War II throughout the poem, which gives us violent imagery, which carries the feelings which were felt during these violent times, such as fear and pain. She talks about a cut on the thumb. The reason why I do not think she is talking about her own thumb is because underneath the title, she dedicated this poem to Susan O'Neill Rose. So this makes us question the persona and who she's writing as. This shows us that we cannot be narrow-minded and say that Sylvia cut her own thumb, because this poem is not necessarily all about her, and we have to consider the persona, and if on a bigger scale, it could be relatable universally. Plath feels as though the cut resembles a relief from reality. It shows us how the cut momentarily relieves her pain in life. We can see this in line 1, when she describes her feelings as, "What a thrill." When we feel a thrill, we are in the moment, and our attention is focusing on the cause of the thrill. Therefore, it shows us how the cut is like a release, because in the moment, all of her problems are blinded and pushed away, as the main focus of her life is on that very exact moment where there's a cut. Throughout the poem, she brings us the image of blood. She gives us this image in stanzas 2, 5, and 8. In stanza 2, she says, "Then that red plush." She is obviously describing the blood dripping from the thumb as rich. The blood is thick and luxurious. This also relates to the idea of Plath finding the cut as a release, because she describes it as plush, which relates to luxury. And it's basically saying that the blood is rich and luxurious because it makes all the pain go away. In stanza 5, she says, "A million soldiers run, red coats, everyone." This gives us imagery of men running into their own death. This is because when she says that they are wearing red coats, it shows us how they are bound to die, as they are wearing the color red, which symbolizes blood and death. In stanza 8, she uses the adjective stain, in the context, "the stain on your gauzy Ku Klux Klan." This gives us imagery of a blood stain. The Ku Klux Klan was a secret society in the US during World War II, so this tells us the blood was on their hands. This could also be telling us that pain comes from everyone. We inflict pain, and we have to experience pain. Plath uses reference to World War II throughout the poem. In stanza 5, she says, "A million soldiers run." A million soldiers are a lot of individuals who enter battle. This line gives us imagery of war and shows us how Plath's poem is universal, as it can relate to millions of people. If we hear that it was a million soldiers, we just think of them as soldiers. But if you magnify this into each person, it shows us that each individual, we all have emotions, and we all have to worry about the same things. It shows us the constant battle in life and represents the challenge we go through. It could also be talking about depression and how millions of people go through it and have to go through the challenge and struggle of survival. Each individual have their own battle to fight. In stanza 6, she says, "Saboteur, kamikaze man." A saboteur is a person who deliberately engages in sabotage, and a kamikaze man is a reference to World War II, of a Japanese aircraft with explosive making a deliberate suicidal crash on the enemy. This image of an act of suicide shows us depression in which is felt among people. In a way, it shows us how the cut is magnified to the event of the suicidal crash. It goes from this small imagery to this magnified event. She uses the word homunculus, which means a very small human being. So she's a very small human being compared to huge events such as the Kamikaze Man. When there is a suicidal crash, the person's life is ended, which is a relief because they are escaping from all the traumas surrounding them. This shows us how Plath's imagery of the cut shows us the pain that gets relieved and the tension gets released. Plath is talking about the feelings of a release through a cut. The cut is a minimized situation of all the violent events occurring in the poem, such as the Kamizaki Man and the million soldiers running with red coats. It shows us how cutting can be deliberate, as it gives us the same relief as death. This poem can be universally relatable, especially to individuals who harm themselves, because psychologically they harm themselves when they feel as though they have no control over any pain other than the pain in which they inflict on themselves. From this analyzation, perhaps this poem shows through how Plath was in such emotional pain and mentally ill that the act of cut was her form of escapism.